Welcome to another episode of Real License Podcast. You know what we continue to do on this show? We highlight greatness from the parish of St. Thomas, Jamaica,
Yes.
aka Paul Bogle Country.
Yes.
Very, very special episode today. All my YALLAHS people gonna love this
Yes.
episode.
Big up to Yallas.
all my YALLAHS people gonna love this episode. We have on the program today a deputy superintendent of the New York City Public Schools.
Brooklyn North High Schools, to be specific.
To be specific, yes, Dr. Rochelle White.
Yes.
Welcome to the
Hey.
program.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um, a very popular media outlet did a coverage on you, and it was great, but they can't go deep into St. Thomas like I can.
True. Let's see a podcast them some know.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you all the professional questions later, but let's just talk about what we have in common, what brought me here, the fact that you are from St. Thomas, Jamaica, and let's just start with your memories. You left Jamaica when you were 8 years old.
I was 8, yes.
What are some of your memories? First of all, let's talk about the schools. Do you remember your basic school?
Yeah, absolutely. I went to Yallas Primary School.
That's the primary school, but
That's the primary
yeah, the
school.
basic school.
Oh,
you
the
rem-
basic school prior
Yeah.
to primary.
Yes.
Okay. I went to Bridgeridge Basic School. Bridgeridge. I don't remember the name of it, but Bridgeridge was the leader of the school at the time.
Oh, okay.
You did.
I
know
never
him?
heard of it.
No.
You remember what part of YALLAHS that was?
Oh Lord. That was 40 years ago. Unfortunately, I don't remember exactly where it was,
Okay.
but
and
it
then,
was Bridgeridge.
Okay, well, and then to YALLAHS
And
Primary.
then to Yallas Primary.
What are some of your memories of YALLAHS Primary?
Oh my God, Yallas Primary School was so amazing. It really, gave me the foundation that I needed to be a person. I remember traveling to the school, walking to school every day, every morning. I got there late almost every day. I got my floggings from the principal at the time, Mr. McDonald.
Okay, trust me, I know him
Oh
very
my
well.
God, let me still line me outside at the gate and I have to hold my hands so and get a little flogging for the
For
the
being
lateness.
late.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember that. But I also remember having just some of the best moments in my life. I was a part of Miss Robinson's dance class. I'll never forget Miss Robinson. And we used to prepare for this big show that's outside. And I remember netball. I wasn't a part of the team at the time. I was first and second grade. I migrated when I was in the second grade. So I remember being a part of the dance program and having a big festival during, I don't remember what I can call it, but it was like this, everybody came out and did something, a sports day or sports activities.
Oh, okay.
And we danced for the sports teams, and it was just
It's probably
really
sports
awesome.
day.
A sports day, yes.
It's a very long time ago,
it's,
right?
a, it's a very long time ago, but just amazing experiences.
So at age 8, you migrated to Brooklyn, New York,
Yes.
where we are right now.
Where we are, isn't that amazing? So
And funny enough, we were probably at YALLAHS Primary at the same time. Just that you were
Yes.
probably in grade 1 or grade 2 while I was in grade 6. I attended YALLAHS Primary for 5 months.
Oh,
You
okay,
know,
okay.
I'm not cheating on license. These are facts. I don't get my license people upset.
Yeah, so it's amazing. I migrated. My family and I migrated. I have 4 brothers, but 3 at the time. The last brother was born here, and my mom, my dad, we migrated to. Actually, they migrated before we did, and then, like 6 years after they migrated, we came up to them. And it was on Madison Street that we migrated to Madison between Evergreen and Bushwick. And this is my office here in the district office, and we're located on Broadway, like the block away from Madison. So it's amazing when I drive here.
So 40 plus years later, you're still in the same
I'm still
neighborhood.
in the same community, and I used to walk this community as an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old, up to 16 or 17. I was living in this neighborhood, and going to the schools in the neighborhood, and I remember coming on and off Broadway with my mom and going to the laundry with her and going to the check cashing place. And 40 years later, I'm working out of this district office as a deputy.
One
It's
of the
full circle.
one of the questions that I told myself I needed to ask you was, what was it like as an 8-year-old immigrant child from Jamaica in the 80s? I want to say mid 80s,
84.
84,
Hmm.
early 80s. That was the height of the crack epidemic,
Hmm.
the height of Reaganomics.
Hmm.
When you see documentaries about what Brooklyn and New York in general was back then, it seemed dangerous.
Yeah.
What was Brooklyn like for you as an 8-year-old immigrant child coming from St. Thomas, Jamaica?
Yeah. So we migrated in May, and during that time, the weather was May weather. It was like
It's not that bad.
60s, 70s.
Yeah.
But I thought it was freezing cold when I first came. And that was a huge shock for me that the temperature felt that frigid in May. When we came, we had all the stories in our head, all the stories that were going around about America and how an amazing opportunity it is to migrate to such a country. And when I came and, we got to Madison Street, I was very excited. We were super excited, excited to be a part of just a new journey. When we were leaving, it was a big thing. Like the entire family came out and it was a celebration of, we're sending you guys off. So for a couple of years, I was kind of still in that mode of, oh my God, I feel privileged to be here and to have migrated. But then I kind of realized the dangers that I actually was experiencing as a child here. It was in the middle of the drug epidemic and the crack era and the guns and the violence. It was, but as a child, you don't really, your childhood is so innocent, so you don't really kind of play into the dangers of your surroundings. So while we were playing in the streets and gunshots were going off, it felt a little normal, unfortunately. It
The
felt
innocence of
like
a child.
the innocence of a child. So, I remember, at one point I was almost shot. We were outside playing on Madison Street, and there was this big, huge war between two groups of folks. And I ran upstairs in the building, and I dodged this way. Normally, when I go inside my apartment, I would go directly to the kitchen because I was that type of girl. I love food. So I end up in the kitchen and I eat. And for some reason, I moved over to the right that day. And as soon as I moved over to the right to go to my room, the bullet came right through the door, and lodged right in the kitchen wall. And I just was so grateful that God told me, little girl, you're not going to the kitchen today. Go on over to your room and do something else, right? And um, that was the first time that I felt, wow, this is really, really dangerous. This is some dangerous stuff. And my parents at the time kind of felt like, all right, it's time for us to go. It's time for us to move.
And to quote 50 Cent, it was clear you were here for a real reason, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Because
Yeah,
if that bullet had hit you, we wouldn't be here,
that's right.
highlighting, the job you have and, letting the world know that greatness can come from St. Thomas, Jamaica. So tell me a
Absolutely.
little bit about high school and college and a little bit about your original career as a trained dancer. Thought I didn't remember that, huh?
I, so when I started here, when I came to school here, I went to a school not too far from, it was like a block away from where we migrated. But I do remember, I keep going back to Miss Robinson from YALLAHS Primary. Miss Robinson instilled in me this kind of hunger for self expression through dancing. And so coming to America, I didn't want to let that go. So when I was in PS 377, um, they had like a mild dance program, but it wasn't anything that I could get into. And so one of my teachers at the time, who also recognized that I needed to be in a different setting to kind of massage my gifts and talents. And so he spoke to my mom and asked her to have me take one of the assessments to go into a specialized gifted program. So I got into Philippa Schuyler, which was at the time one of the most prestigious middle schools in New York City. And they had a dance program, and I enrolled in that dance program and studied modern dance with Miss Cloud and then Miss Berger. And then it was in the neighborhood. But then when I wanted to go to high school, I wanted to make sure that I got out of the neighborhood and got to really experience some other parts of New York City. And so I looked at a school that was furthest from my house. That was one of the qualifying reasons to go to that school. Furthest from the house and has a substantial dance program that I could be a part of. And so John Dewey High School was that school. It was a 2-hour commute every day. And I'd walk on Broadway, go to Gates Avenue, hop on the train. 2 hours later, I'd be in Coney Island at John Dewey High School, where it was hugely diverse. I had, there were peers who were from all walks of the world. And that really, really helped me to really understand myself and to really understand that there's an extension of opportunities that are available to me and to my peers. And so the dance program was one of the top reasons that I was so focused in school and disciplined and just really, structured, put some structures in place to make sure that I was on the right path.
So high school dancing was a thing, and then how were you drawn to education?
I know that's
Yeah.
that's another
How did
thing.
you make that transition from
Dance to an English
dancing
teacher.
to an English teacher?
Yeah, I question that sometimes.
A great decision.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, as I said, I had 3 brothers. One was born here. The youngest one who was born here, we were 11 years apart. And so when I was going to 383, he was like 6 months old. So I would come home and I'd pretend to be the teacher. So my mom bought me like a little chalkboard and got me like chalk and all of that stuff. And so I would prop him up. I'd prop him up on the bed, put a pillow behind him so he could sit, because they couldn't sit at 6 months. So he could sit up. And whatever I learned in middle school, I brought home and I taught him. And that was the first exposure to teaching for me, like a passion for teaching, right? And so when I was in my last year of high school, I was getting ready to do this major performance with my dance teacher, and I don't know, I wasn't feeling well, and the teacher pulled me over to the side, and he said, "You're gonna sit there, and you're gonna stay there until you get a pregnancy test." I was like, "Pregnancy test?" He said, "You're not taking risks like you used to with dancing. You're like scared and I don't know what's going on with you, but go get a pregnancy test." I was like, "What is this man talking about, pregnancy test?" So I took a pregnancy test, and
Lo and behold.
I came to school, and he looked at my eyes and he's like, "I knew it. I knew it. I knew it." And I was like, "Yeah." So he's like, "Well, you could help behind the scenes." And that was the shift for me from dancing, because it was kind of like, wow, now you have a true responsibility other than yourself. And so I became pregnant my last year in high school. I had my child in November, but I graduated June of that year. And when I had him in November and realized that I couldn't start my college career, I would come home to him and say, "I got to put a plan in place. Like, I got to get something in place, because it's not just about me anymore." And so I was accepted to a college. I didn't like the college I was accepted to, so I went down to the college and demanded my transcript and all my application and all that stuff, and took it down to Brooklyn College and went to the admissions office and I said, "This is where I want to be. I want to come in and study liberal arts because I'm not sure what I want to do." And they accepted me on the spot, and so I started the spring of that year as a liberal arts major. And in about like a year, I kind of felt like I kind of like literature. I'm falling in love with literature because migrating from Jamaica to here under the British system, it was hard to understand the difference between American Standard English and British Standard English. And so when I'm in school and I would say, we say certain words like schedule or
Schedule.
schedule, right? Or XYZ, right?
XYZ.
Z.
After 31 years in America myself, I
Exactly.
know the struggle.
Exactly. And so that transferred in my writing and in my speaking, and my professors just couldn't get it. They were like, "What's going on?" And so
Lieutenant and lieutenant.
exactly. And so I had to kind of like learn the American Standard English. That was the most challenging for me. So I felt like, you know what? I'm going to master this because it felt foreign. It felt really foreign. So I said, I'm going to master this. And I dedicated myself to focusing on becoming an English major. And so I became an English major. And I'm like, what am I going to do with an English degree? And like 6 months before I graduated college, I said, you know what? I bet you there are people like me, students like me, who are from the Caribbean, who are from other countries, who are struggling to to command the American Standard English in communicating, writing, speaking, and so on. I said I'm gonna use the same strategies that I learned and help to kind of like free people, right? So that they can be released into a pathway to success.
So, is it safe to say, in a strange way, getting pregnant was a blessing in disguise?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that did for me, some people take pregnancies two ways. You can either really dedicate yourself to just focusing on raising your child, or you do both in addition to raising the child and kind of putting yourself in a position to support your child financially, and to give them that stability. And I chose both. I chose to further my education, building structures in place to support my child, and to parent him. So it was a balance that I had to learn, but it really like lit a different type of fire under me.
And next thing you know, you are an English teacher.
Yeah.
And how many years did you actually teach?
So I finished my degree in 3 years. I finished my bachelor's degree in 3 years. And I started teaching in one of the schools that I now support as a deputy superintendent. I started teaching there, and I taught for 3 years, full time teaching program for 3 years. And after the 3 years, they came to me and said, "You should be a dean." So then I said, "Okay, sure, I'll be a dean." So I accepted the deaning position, and I did that for 2 years. And after the 2 years, I had to go back to school because to be a teacher, to be a permanent teacher in New York City, you have to have a master's degree and 30 above your master's. So I went back to school for the master's and the 30 above, which is an advanced certificate. And I got that in administration and supervision because one of my friends said, "You need to get that. You need to get that degree." And I was like, what am I doing with an admin? Like, I'm, I said to her, "I'm getting the 30 credits in knitting and crocheting. I want to knit. I want to learn how to crochet and knit." And
You just
she's
want the
like,
credits.
That's all. I just need the credits. And she's like, "God's got a plan. You better prepare yourself. God's got a plan." And so I went down and I got that enrollment, and I enrolled in an admin program. And as soon as I got that admin degree, the assistant principal of the English department in that school retired. Literally got the degree in June. She retired in July.
Opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. And while I didn't start September, the person who started, he was there for 4 months. And then the principal came to me, "Don't you have an admin degree?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "All right, so this is it. I want you to do that." And so I became an assistant principal in that school, taking over the English department. And we did some amazing things. Like, we did some amazing things in that school. We revamped the curriculum. We made sure to target like standards for students, and made sure that the teaching was relevant to our students' needs. And we saw shifts in performance for our students from a 49% proficiency level on the standardized tests to an 89 within months. And we continued to see that kind of growth and impact. And I stayed as an assistant principal for maybe like 5 to 7 years. And then after that, someone said, "Hey, we have a school over here that needs a little massaging, a little TLC." And it was a middle school in Queens. And so I said, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." So I became the principal. I accepted the principal's position in Queens. And it was a school that needed massaging and TLC every day, every minute.
New York City's tough school system.
So, that was also just a really amazing time in my life where I saw the opportunity to really galvanize a community, to tap into the talents and strengths of the teachers who were there and the assistant principals who were there and the parents and our students. And we shifted that community so much. Our students used to take trips to the zoo. And by the time I was finished in that school, my last like 2 years, our kids were going to London, free of charge, going to London, sitting in universities, and asking questions about, what I didn't get a chance to go on the trip for some reason, but the kids, when they went to like 6 different universities, and they spoke to admissions officers and asked them questions about, well, how diverse is your school community? What if I wanted to come to your school? What do I need to do as a person of color? And really put them on their toes, because they were really like, some of them were hit by the reality of having 3% black and brown students in their schools. And, I really wanted to get the message to our kids that they have to really think about global leadership in a different way, and think about them being positioned for global leadership, and not just, I'm a New York City student. I'm going to be born and raised in New York. I'm going to live in New York the rest of my life. There's so much of the world that is available to them.
It's funny you should say that, because I have a friend, an old schoolmate. She teaches, I want to say, in Far Rockaway, Queens. She took some children to Europe once before, and she told me similar stories where some of those kids never left Far Rockaway.
Yeah, yeah, you'd be surprised.
And she was the one who took them for the first time out of the country.
Yeah.
So, how long were you principal of that school? How long did you do principal work in different schools?
I was a principal just in that school for 9, almost 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 9, almost 10 years. And again, it needed TLC every day, every minute. There was not a day where it did not need the same level of energy to support the students in that school. And it was during the middle of actually the beginning of the pandemic, that I was offered an opportunity to be a director on a district level. March 10th, 2020, to be exact.
Whoa. The beginning of COVID-19.
Yes. So I reported to this office. No, actually, we had a meeting downtown, and then we had to come back. So I reported to this office on March 10th. March 11th, we were gathered around the TV to be told We're going remote. And so I had to navigate that new, it was a lot of
New way
newness.
of life.
It was a new way of life. I just finished my tenure as a principal. I left my family and community from that school. I was navigating this new way of supporting schools and not just one school, because I was a one school girl. I was a principal of one school. And becoming a director, I was supporting 47 schools now. And so I spent a very short time as a director. I supported a couple of schools of the 47, and then the opportunity presented itself to become a deputy superintendent with Superintendent Janice Ross of Brooklyn North High Schools. And Superintendent Ross and I go back a long time. We actually go back to Maxwell days. I didn't name the school, but I just named it. That's the school that I first taught in, and she and I were friends in that school. She was a guidance counselor when I was a dean, and so she became a principal and then a deputy. And then when she became superintendent, she was kind of tapping me and saying, "Hey, come on my team." And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm loving principalship, you know." And so I kind of worked with her and other superintendents in Brooklyn North and as a director. And so when the deputy position presented itself, I interviewed and accepted and became deputy. And this is my first full year, actually a year and like a couple months as a deputy superintendent.
Briefly explain to the viewers the job description of a deputy superintendent of education for this region. Which region is this again?
Brooklyn North.
Brooklyn North.
Yeah.
And how many schools you were in charge of?
47.
47 schools.
47 high schools.
Wow.
Yeah. 27,000 students. And I told the team on Friday, I lead the instructional leadership team. We call it Data Fridays. And that's a team that supports all of the schools from every angle, from special ed needs to culture and climate needs to attendance supports to guidance supports. And so I lead that team on Fridays, and I was saying to the team, I said, we have 27,000 students, but imagine the parents, right? That's another additional 50,000 parents. And then families, that's an additional 100,000 families that we're supporting.
Teachers and principals.
And we didn't even touch the teachers and principals yet. We're
I can
talking
imagine
about
it.
a stretch of almost 200,000 residents in New York City, specifically Brooklyn North. And I said to them, it's a huge calling. And we, as a team, we have to be at 150% every single day, because some child and their family is depending on us to make the right decisions, to provide them with the right resources. Some child is depending on us to do that. And if we don't do that, it changes the trajectory of their lives.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to ask you some more structured professional questions as to your job as deputy superintendent. And I think it's very important because people don't understand how important of a job you have.
Yeah.
So question number 1. Was getting good, right? I know what you're thinking. That's it? Nah, that's not it. Stay tuned for part 2. Right here on the Real License Podcast, the only show in the world that's licensed for real. You know how we do.